Welcome to the Verdin Verdict Sports Show. I'm your host, Jacob Verdin. We have another stream weekly episode breaking down college football, breaking down LSU's matchup for the week, and all the coverage we got with Coach Brian Kelly. So far for this week of preparation, we got some good news. First things first, injuries. Jayden Daniels is healthy. We've seen him get banged up this past Saturday. A lot of people worried nationwide whether or not something was going to linger into the next going weeks, especially with him entering the Heisman conversation finally, which we will talk about later on in this episode. Moving forward, though, Chris Hilton will be out. Charles Turner will be in. Omar Spates in. And as we said, Jayden Daniels in. So that's pretty big. We're not going to lose our center. Linebacker room going to be in its entirety. And unfortunately, Chris Hilton now. But that wide receiver room is very deep right now. They got a lot of options. Almost too many options. They got too many people out there to get the ball to. Let's talk about some of those guys. Brian Thomas Jr. leads the entirety of college football in receiving touchdowns with 9. Malik Nabers, second in NCAA for reception yards, 5th in receptions. He has 771 reception yards, 46 catches. He's been a lights-out wide receiver 1 for LSU, gelled perfectly into that role. You saw him last year, younger guy, wide receiver 2, take that role and, succeed greatly, and that's probably what's helped push him into this upper echelon of wide receivers in college football this year. But Brian Thomas Jr. in his role of being the second wide receiver has almost looked like a wide receiver 1. He's almost looked like Malik Nabers at times. And for Jayden Daniels to have 2 wideouts that are capable of being Blittenkoff finalists, that are at the top of the SEC in almost every major respective receiving category, does wonders to your offense, does wonders to your passing game. Not only that, but your confidence. I think we really have one of the best offenses in college football. Let's break down where LSU leads and where they are ranked in the top 10 national categories, they rank in 6 categories, top 10. Number 1 in first downs, number 3 in total offense, number 3 in third down conversions, number 5 in scoring, number 5 in pass efficiency, and number 7 in passing. So all in all, this is the number 1 ranked offense in the SEC, and what I've seen from them is just a lot more comfort in the pocket. You've let Jayden kind of show off that decision-making a little bit. You heard Coach Kelly say today that, he would like to see him at times throw the ball in a little tighter windows, push the ball here and there, but he's really, really comfortable and safe with the ball. He doesn't want to put the ball in harm's way, doesn't want to create any interceptions, any turnovers, and break that consistency that he's been, putting out at. I think that if you continue to rely on the run game the way that they've been doing with the plenty running backs that they have in that room, plus the fact that Jayden Daniels can give you 20 to 30 yards in any given rush, that's going to open up the scheme a lot more for them. Brian Kelly talked about how in cover 1, you're going to see a lot of backers in coverage in the slot and whatnot, and that's what's going to open up those Brian Thomas routes, those Malik Nabers routes, those deep routes for Jayden Daniels to be able to make those big explosive plays that you've been seeing LSU make all year. So with that being said, take a look at the LSU and Auburn game. I think that, Hugh Freeze has done a pretty good turnaround in 1 year. Now, of course, not as good as Brian Kelly did with LSU last season, but Auburn was in a lot different situation prior to Hugh Freeze than they are now. I think that their run game is very, very solid. Auburn might have one of the better run games that we've faced so far. I think what makes their run game so brutal is similar to what makes ours so brutal. Their quarterback can get in and get active, and at times he runs more than he throws. I mean, if you look at their close game against Georgia, he ran more than he passed in terms of yardage. He had 92 rushing yards and only 82 passing yards. So with that being said, you can see where the mindset of this offense is. It's a run-first team. They're not going to say that they're not going to pass, but they're not going to rely on passing. Now, if you're LSU's defense, that tells you one of two things. That tells you that you could focus on stacking the box, getting that pressure, trying to create some containment and confuse that offense, get the quarterback off his spot, make Auburn think a little bit. But what they need to be prepared for is a little sneak attack. They need to be prepared for when that run stops inevitably, or for when LSU has that answer for what's going to be opened up in the passing game. Because taking a look at Peyton Thorne, Auburn's quarterback, he threw for over 6,000 yards at Michigan State. Now, right now, currently, he only has 4 passing touchdowns and 4 interceptions. So he's kind of riding that line pretty thin. But I think that he definitely is a threat, especially with our DB room. He's definitely a threat to create some some trouble and make this a little bit of an interesting game. You see LSU debuting at the favored hard at negative 11.5. Totals at 61. So what that tells me is we're in for a little bit of a treat. I feel like the last time that this happened, Arkansas, LSU, Tiger Stadium, LSU heavily favored against kind of weaker SEC West team when you look at the hierarchy of what's going on in the standings. I'm not saying LSU is in over their head or they're thinking that they got one in the bag, because things have changed since the Arkansas game, as we know. So they might be able to, go out, start fast, and try to hit Auburn early. I think if you're playing against a team that can run the football, here are the main things you want to focus on. So you want to be able to chew that clock, because if you put them in a situation where they don't have that much time, they're not going to be able to rely on their strong suit. They're not going to be able to just run the ball down the field. They're not going to be able to just chew that clock over and over and over. They're not going to have much time. So control that time of possession. LSU is going to be able to probably push their way into a situation where, they're going to have to get a stop here, or they're going to have to get a big turnover like we saw at the end of the Mizzou game. But, I think that they're going to have to ride the hot hands here. You got a couple hot hands on LSU's team. You're going to have to play hard on them. I think the first one is obvious. It's Jayden Daniels. You're going to have to go on the offensive side, trust in your quarterback, allow him to produce at the level that he's been producing. And on the defensive side, y'all finished out very strong performance against Mizzou. I think that energy needs to be brought to this game. That energy needs to be brought to this game so that momentum can grow and that run can get stopped, because I think really that's going to be the X factor in this game, is whether or not LSU's defenders can put the runners on the ground. If Auburn's going to run all over LSU, if they're going to chew the clock, if they're going to be in control, if they're going to dictate how long the defense is out there and when the offense can come back out, it'll be a rough game and LSU's going to be in a rough spot. However, if the defense can get them off the field and allow the offense to chew time and just put them in a rough situation where they have to pass and they have to rely on Peyton Thorne, and it wasn't their first option, and now we know what to expect because the game plan shifts, that's going to be their ticket. I think, if that happens in a perfect world, LSU more than likely is going to take this one. My score prediction for this is going to be 31-24. I think that, it's a probable win. It'll be a close one, though. I'm not going to ride that 11.5 spread. I'm not feeling too confident in that one. I think our offense is, a lot better than Auburn's offense, but offense doesn't always win you the games, as you see. You saw that against Ole Miss. You saw that against a lot of other situations this year in college football as well. I think one of the other things that we're going to have to pay attention to in this game is going to be the physicality, because that defensive line that Auburn has definitely poses a threat to Jayden Daniels and his health and what he'll be able to do for this offense, because if the defensive line gets in, rocks him early, doesn't allow him to get out of the pocket, keeps him in a little contained and closed area, there's going to be trouble. He's not going to be able to just bounce out, extend the play, get the yardage. And I think that these hits are going to start to add up. I mean, you can't week after week after week just keep getting smoked, not getting down, not sliding. I mean, come on. At some point, sooner rather than later, we're going to have to start protecting ourselves and playing the long game here. We're going to need Jayden Daniels on the field if we're going to be talking, a potential SEC title or, potential New Year's Six Bowl to try to bring LSU some relevancy when it comes down to bowl season. But, the Auburn game is going to be pretty big for LSU in terms of recruiting. You're going to see a lot of people come through. Bryce Underwood, quarterback 2025 class. He's the number one recruit in his class, so that's pretty big. Richard Anderson, 4-star D lineman, 2026 class. Adrian Walker, athlete, 2025 class, 3 stars. Lamar Brown plays O-line and D-line. He's at ULAP currently, which is right next to Tiger Stadium. So, he gets a taste of that Baton Rouge experience. And you get Harlan Berry, running back, pretty prominent in his class as well. And C.J. Jackson is an edge, 4-star recruit. So they're going to be packed to the gills, not only with football, but with basketball, women's basketball, men's basketball. LSU, it seems like every home game has major recruiting efforts. You can see that they're pushing it hard here. I think what What deserves to be pushed a little harder, though, I ain't going to lie, Jayden Daniels. I think the Jayden Daniels hype train is growing. You see a lot of people jumping on. We've been talking about it as of late. I feel like Jayden Daniels, a lot of people in the beginning didn't think that he was a legitimate Heisman candidate. A lot of people didn't think that he was a legitimate quarterback. You saw some people wondering whether or not he should be starting for us. I think that those worries got washed. SEC Player of the Week third time in 4 different weeks. That's nuts. I think he's really taken the nation by storm with his playing style. It kind of makes people uneasy at first when your quarterback holds on to the ball that long, especially when, like Brian Kelly says, the quarterback holds on to the ball and doesn't necessarily want to put it in tight windows at first, as we saw last year. That confused a lot of people. A lot of people were thinking it was a decision-making thing, or a lot of people were thinking that he wasn't going to be able to be that quarterback that brings us to a national championship. Now this year you see when LSU develops him and he gets that relationship with the coaches and you get that camaraderie, things change. And I think that that's going to be something that LSU is going to have to continually harp on with the recruiting and with the building of these teams, is that, it's not going to be a 1 to 2 year fix all the time. You're going to have to develop those relationships. You're going to have to keep putting that team together, keep putting that culture together. And that's going to be what makes things stick here in Baton Rouge. Looking at the Mizzou game, rough start, really rough start. I feel like last couple of games have been just pretty hard in a sense where you're nervous the whole time. You don't know what's happening, back and forth, a shootout. Both offenses are super high-powered. We saw that really 3 weeks in a row, if we're being honest. But I think that 2 100-yard rushers, Logan Diggs, Jayden Daniels, that's really big. Back-to-back games for Logan Diggs getting over the century mark. And Jayden Daniels, of course, is always a threat to honestly get 60 rushing yards every game at the minimum, it seems like. Receiver Malik Nabers led with 146 yards for his team. So, he's been explosive. Just like Luther Verdin, though. Brady Cook and Luther Burden had their way with LSU. I think that their running game was even solid, too. But like we said, the defense turned around when they needed to turn around. You saw big plays, especially from Major Burns, where he scored that pick six. You heard Brian Kelly said not to score there. Come on, bro. It's too hard not to score. When you got a pick six in your hands, especially at that moment of the game, take it. You got to take it. I know you want the game to end. Everything worked out. We got the touchdown. I feel like as a DB, as a defender, you're going to want to see that pay dirt every time you can. It's pretty rare. So shout out to Major Burns for getting in that end zone. Also, Harold Perkins got a takeaway early in the game. That was pretty big. Mason Smith got in there, and, you saw exactly what he's capable of, and that's what we've been preaching here. I think that, if you put him in those situations where he's on the line in a single block, it's time and time again going to be a mismatch. He's going to get inside and he's going to create havoc. See, a lot of the things we've been seeing is him double teamed and him, like Brian Kelly said, doing the dirty work. And at times in football, that's how things go. Especially when you're a big guy, you create a lot of, you get a lot of attention. Especially when you're pulling 40% of the offensive line. He's doing his job, he's doing his part, and against Mizzou, he did that and then some. Big sack, big pass deflection as well, getting agile, jumping over the defensive line. Pretty big game. Also, for Mizzou, for how they've been looking, I feel like they've really turned things around. I'm not going to say that team is as horrible as they used to be, or, that they don't have any future, especially if, these guys with Brady Cook and Luther Burden leave. I don't think that that's going to just fragment Mizzou and make them not be able to carry things on in the future. I think that they're going to be able to somehow, some way ride these type of moments. Them staying close with LSU, them having a great talent in Luther Burden and being able to develop him and keep him at the top of the SEC statistical leaders. I think that those type of things, those type of recruiting moments, that's going to help them not only keep the guys around them, but more than likely be able to stay around. So I wouldn't scratch off Mizzou just yet. Yeah, we beat them, but man, that game was far too close for me to be comfortable with, just writing them off ever again. Not that we did this time, but you did hear, you heard some noise, you seen the lines move, and it's one of those moments where it was gut check time for LSU fans. But moving forward to what is going to be gut check time for a lot of SEC teams, what are going to be the toughest games for the SEC contenders? This is the SEC title hunt, and we're going to give you a little bit of a breakdown of what we think is going to happen. So first off, we're going to start with the SEC West leaders, who I think is more than likely going to take the SEC West. It'll be Alabama. I know not a lot of people like to hear it. It's the honest truth. I think Nick Saban's put together a pretty good program. They're in position to punch their ticket, a lot better position than us. I think really the only game left on their schedule that can jeopardize that is going to be against us. Their toughest game, our toughest game left, is going to be that November 4th matchup in Tuscaloosa. I think the fact that it's in Tuscaloosa does give them the advantage. The fact that we beat them last year on a 2-point conversion in overtime also might give them what they need. It might give them that chip on the shoulder. It might give them enough to secure that home field advantage and get that win and have Nick Saban and Brian Kelly's SEC competitive coaching records evened out at 1-1. But by the same token, you could have LSU walk in there and just think they have nothing to lose. You can get them comfortable and you can put the pressure on a younger Jalen Milroe. And he's kind of, I'm not going to say he's green, but in terms of Alabama quarterbacks, he's one of the more greener ones that they've had recently. I think if we can go beat Alabama with Bryce Young, Will Anderson, and the plethora of talent that they had last season, I think that this year we might be able to do the same thing. I think that that's going to be a winner-takes-the-seat type of game. The SEC West is going to be really laid out based on how that contest goes. Georgia's toughest game left is going to be Ole Miss. That matchup is probably going to be one of the only games I can see them losing for the rest of the year. Could it all end? Could the 3 or 2.5 whatever year reign at the number 1 spot, can that end for Georgia when they take on the Rebels? They're going to be at home, so there's that home field advantage again. But I think this is a big battle, a lot bigger battle than people are going to want to admit. I think Georgia's only real competition, though, in the East is Kentucky. They already beat them, so they got that tiebreaker point out of the way. I just don't see anybody else really taking that spot from them. So I think Georgia's going to wind up, even if they lose to Ole Miss, still going to be able to go in that SEC title. However, they lose to Ole Miss. Ole Miss is going to 100% punch their way into the SEC title game. They're going to get that rematch, and we're going to be able to see part 2 of that. I don't know if that's what we want to see. I think everyone's dream SEC title game would be a rematch with LSU and Georgia, if you're asking me. But, moving forward to our top 3 games of the week, we got Oregon versus Washington, of course. How could you not mention this game? I think this top 10 matchup is at the top of everybody's watch list for this week. Then USC versus Notre Dame. It's another good matchup. You got 2 potential Heisman quarterbacks with Caleb Williams, Sam Hartman. They can swing some things out there. And you got UNC versus Miami. Now, I know this one's kind of rough. They don't have that many ranked matchups this week that are going to be able to take this spot from UNC. It's kind of an odd one to put on the top 3 games, but Drake May and Mario Cristobal are going to be the 2 names that are going to keep this relevant. Not only did Mario Cristobal enter himself on the hot seat by making that interesting decision to continuously play instead of kneel and wind up costing them the game, but Drake May's also had a stellar performance. Drake's thrown for over 400 yards twice this year, and he's had over 70% completion in terms of passing every single game. So I think this could be a matchup that a lot of people are going to want to see. UNC's favored by 3-5. I'm going to lean towards the Tar Heels on this one. I think that this matchup's going to be, I'm not going to say dominated by a Drake May passing performance, but, he's very accurate, and I think that Miami's morale and their confidence and everything going on in that building right now is probably at a season-high low after last week. Moving on to USC and Notre Dame. Notre Dame lost to Ohio State 14-17. They squeaked by Duke 21-14, and they got killed by Louisville 20-33 last week. I think this is a USC game all the way, and for Notre Dame to be favored at 2.5, that's confusing. I'm going to take USC plus 2.5 on this. Seems like a no-brainer, led by Caleb Williams, have the most average points per game in college football. This seems like the type of matchup that Notre Dame's not going to be able to pull out of, especially if you see them floating around the 20-point scoring mark in these 3 big games. I think that USC is going to be able to put well more than 20 points. I think they're going to put well over that. I think that Caleb Williams is going to be able to help his team get over in this one. And for Oregon and Washington, you got Washington favored at -3. I'm going to lean towards Oregon. They got a similar offense to Washington, I think. You got Bo Nix, you got Michael Penix. They're both up there in terms of yards per game, passing yards. I think the difference here is going to be the defense. I think that Oregon's defense is a lot more solid. They got a lot more of of a base. They got a lot more pressure that they can put on Michael Penix, but he's going to be the X factor, Penix. I think that this is a big game for the Heisman rankings. You see Nix take on Penix, and pretty much whoever is going to win this game will probably lead the Heisman race for the next couple of weeks. But I think you can look to Oregon to make this one a very interesting game, and I think that they're probably going to be able to take this one out. But that +3, I would take that one as well. And once again, for the Auburn game, my 3 keys are going to be ride the hot hand, protect the pocket, keep the Heisman season rolling. Jayden Daniels has been doing great. I think that if we rely on him and we try to, let him keep creating what he's been creating, I think we're going to be in good shape. Also, stop the run. I think that, the defense finished off strong against Missouri. They got something to be proud of. They're back home in Tiger Stadium. There's been a lot of road games to open up the year. They finally get to soak up that Baton Rouge energy. They need to just let it all out on the field, stop that run, confuse that offense, make them throw, make them uncomfortable, and they'd be in good shape. Control the time of possession as well. That's going to be the last key. I think if you hold the ball, you win, because the staple of their offense requires chewing clock. If you have no clock to chew, you're going to be in a world of hurt. So I think Brian Kelly and LSU definitely going to be able to pull out this win. It's looking good. I would lean on it. It's pretty favored. That 11.5-point spread, that took me by surprise. I would not take that. I don't know what Vegas is doing with these lines and these LSU games, but they must be some LSU fans. I appreciate it, but it's almost an unplayable spread right there. Thanks for watching. We're going to be breaking down the game right after this Saturday. So right after that Auburn game, you want to vent out some of your frustrations. Hopefully not. Hopefully we got a lot of things to talk about that are positive. Hopefully we got a shutout win, great game, everybody's happy. But we'll be here regardless. Set the notification bell, hit that subscribe button, follow us for more LSU football updates. This has been the Verdin Verdict. Thanks for watching.